Hello and welcome. It is once again time for an edition of Jeremy Speaks on Wrestling here on Spreaker. Like, share, subscribe, comment, criticize. It is all welcome. I would like to thank you for taking time out of your day, especially my wrestling fans, taking time out of your day to listen to my podcast here on Spreaker. It will also be uploaded to YouTube in its entirety 2 days after the initial broadcast to my channel, not Jeremy Speaks, but the Negro Sports League. All wrestling-related content will go on the Negro Sports League, and all social commentary and otherwise, or things that I'm thinking about, or current events or world events at the time, will go on my Jeremy Speaks channel, just to keep them separate, right? I do have different interests, and I don't think that I should lock both of my channels down into one. I should lock one into one category and one into another. So the Negro Sports League will have full episodes 2 days after my initial episode uploads on Spreaker. Here in this series, we're covering the countdown to Tampa Bay, my personal countdown to Tampa Bay, because in about 2.5 weeks, I will be in Tampa Bay at WrestleMania. Three-peat is what I'm going to call this. Hashtag three-peat. This will be my third consecutive one. So I figured doing something like a countdown covering all the WrestleManias will, be kind of my homage to WrestleMania, because I am spending money to go on this trip. Anyway, that's besides the point. This is the countdown to Tampa, and today we will be talking about WrestleMania 3. WrestleMania 3, which was held in Detroit, Michigan at the Superdome, which is currently either demolished or is naturally just falling apart. It's a disputed attendance record, but at the time it said 93,173 people were at the Pontiac Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan. I said Detroit, excuse me. WrestleMania 3 was known for being billed as the coronation of Hulk Hogan from Andre the Giant. That was the big match of the show, but as we will see in this episode, a lot of things happened where the focus has shifted historically towards everybody's memory being tied to one specific match at WrestleMania. WrestleMania 3 was held on March 29th. There were 12 matches, and as the aforementioned match I spoke of, the World Heavyweight Championship, which Hulk Hogan was the champion, he would defend his title against Andre the Giant. It is particularly notable due to the WWF record attendance at the time. It was the largest recorded attendance of a live indoor event in North America at the time. It's considered to be the pinnacle of the 1980s wrestling boom, with almost 1 million fans watching the event at 160 closed circuit locations in North America. And the number of people watching via pay-per-view estimated at several million. The WWF at the time, the WWF/E generated 1.6 million in ticket sales, and pay-per-view revenues were estimated at 10.3 million, setting a record at the time. Now, later years, of course, they would break their own record. It's always disputed, and it's disputed by people who heard secondhand that this is what it is. And, they weren't a publicly traded company at the time. Now they have to report these numbers and be accurate with them. But in the 80s, you could kind of fudge them if you like, which, hey, 93,173 is certainly an odd number to peek at. But, numbers look good when you're trying to sell advertising space to investors. So I get why he'd say he had almost 100,000 people. The first match of the show featured the Can-Am Connection, which consisted of Rick Martel and Tom Zink against Bob Orton and the Magnificent Morocco, accompanied by Mr. Fuji. And I have to say, over my coverage of watching these WrestleManias, the managers play such a pivotal part. And the reason why I say play a pivotal part, in WrestleMania 3, you see Jimmy Hart a lot. You see Bobby the Brain Heenan a couple of times. These managers were important to the match and the psychology of the match at the time. And having a Mr. Fuji, or having a Bobby the Brain Heenan, or having a Jimmy Hart, it really increased the, I guess, I don't want to say heat, but, Jimmy Hart could get heat from a refrigerator. So let's be honest. Bobby the Brain Heenan could get over a pile of bricks. But I just wanted to give an ode to the managers right quick, how important they are to the early WrestleManias and the success of them. the Can-Am Connection and versus Bob Orton and the Magnificent Morocco. This match ended when Martel gave Morocco a high cross body with zinc on his hands and knees, giving Morocco what Gorilla Monsoon called a little schoolboy trip from behind, allowing Martel to get the win for his team. Of course, early matches are to pop the crowd. I get it. The next match that was on the card was Hercules, accompanied by Bobby the Brain Heenan against Billy Jack Haynes in the Full Nelson Challenge. Billy Jack Haynes was a huge guy, and so was Hercules. Glad they dropped that Hernandez. Vince has a history of dropping last names. Anyway, and it was back and forth, a test of strength, like you would expect a 1980s match with two muscular, built-up guys to go. You would expect it to go the way that it went. Of course, it was some chicanery, some cheating. The match ended when Haynes locked Hercules in a full Nelson outside the ring, and both were counted out. Of course, it was going to end in a count out because the 80s were all about big, jacked up guys looking strong. Billy Jack Haynes wasn't going to, look weak. In the 80s, it always feels like in these early, I stated on the second episode, it always feels like these early WrestleManias consisted of guys clinging to their spots, didn't want to look weak. I talked about how, on the WrestleMania 1 episode, how Greg the Hammer Valentine and JYD, Greg the Hammer Valentine took the count out. And JYD won the match technically, but he didn't win the title. The match ended once again when Haynes locked in, and they both got counted out. After the match, though, Heenan assaulted Haynes by kneeing Haynes in the back after he applied the full Nelson to Hercules outside the ring. And, of course, Haynes chased Heenan into the ring where Hercules would come in and hit Haynes with the chain. And he hit him quite a few times before, he was busted open. No red, no bread is what I used to hear when I was coming up. In the South, when you wrestled, there had better been red. But he hit him with a chain, and then he locked him into a full Nelson, and, of course, got heat, which is one of the few times I can say Hercules got heat in a good way. The next match on the card, which is, of course, Vince McMahon and his love of weird, I don't know. I think it's weird. I think midget wrestling is weird if midgets are wrestling giants, but, watching the match, I get it. It was a mixed tag match between King Kong Bundy and his professional wrestling team of Lord Little Overbrook and Little Tokyo against Hillbilly Jim, which I liked Hillbilly Jim, and his own team of the Haiti Kid and the Little Beaver. The rules clearly stated that only midgets, little people, I don't know what they like to be called, so if I have a listener that happens to be a midget that is listening or a little person, I don't mean to offend you. This is what they were called in the 80s. Could fight midgets, and that neither Bundy nor Hillbilly was allowed to attack him, though at one point, Bundy did tag in, and Little Beaver refused to tag out. And he even hit King Kong Bundy. They used to refer to King Kong Bundy as a walking building or a walking condominium. Little Beaver hit him with a drop kick, and he bailed to tag Hillbilly Jim. Now, of course, with King Kong Bundy being the heel, he's not going to just let the fact that you just tried to play him in front of everybody just slide. So, it did cost the team the victory. King Kong Bundy's team was disqualified when Bundy attacked Little Beaver because Bundy was not supposed to be in the ring with him. After Beaver had attacked Bundy on occasion during the match, he finally got caught, and Bundy got him back. And he hit him with a body slam and dropped an elbow across his chest. He was about to splash him, but his homeboys came to his defense and pulled him out of the way. Which, my take on it is, I've always been a fan of the wrestling aspect of things. If WCW was still doing Starrcade, this would probably be an episode about Starrcade, but it's not. I've always been a fan of work rate, but I get why you have to have attractions at a show, especially a show of this magnitude. This is a big building, and you want to fill it up, and you want to reach across many demographics. I get it. And speaking of reaching across demographics, we got a match where the loser must bow. It was a match between the Junkyard Dog, and Harley Race with, of course, Bobby Heenan. But this time Moolah was there. Bobby Heenan made several appearances at this WrestleMania. Again, I have to stress to you how important managers were at these early WrestleManias and in early 80s wrestling too. They're very important. A manager could see things and guide and direct matches in a way you didn't think they could. Prior to this match, Mean Gene interviewed Heenan, Race, and Moolah, where Moolah predicted where the Junkyard Dog would have to bow to the king as he is supposed to do. Bobby then gave Moolah a crown and told her to put it on the king's head after the match, as, quote, only the queen of wrestling can do. Junkyard Dog came out to the ring, and let me tell you, I think it's one of my favorite camera shots of somebody on the entrance. JYD was being brought out on this, it was a forklift with something that looked like a ring on it, right? He was being brought out, and the flash bulbs and just the camera shot and the angle that it had behind him, it looked like it was bigger than just wrestling to me at that point. And it still is. I still enjoy watching that camera shot because I can only imagine what it would feel like walking out to 93,000 people, to Queen playing Another One Bites the Dust, to you coming out to the ring. Man, during the match, though, the two battled back and forth. Race even tried to give a headbutt to the dog, which everybody know the headbutt was the dog's thing. You know, JYD, that was thump, baby. You know, that was his thing. Following this, Race recovered enough to get a Junkyard Dog a belly-to-belly suplex when he was distracted by Bobby Heenan. And he got the win. The stipulation of the match, the pre-match stipulation, JYD did a little bow and then he hit Race from the blind side with a steel chair, making the crowd pop because, I mean, come on. JYD was the man. At one point in 1980s WWE, he was more over than Hogan. But you don't hear about that, right? You'll never hear about that. It's kind of how Roman Reigns in today's market sells more T-shirts than anybody, but that's because the WWE brings more of his shirts to the show. But, you know, of course you're going to sell everybody if you got more shirts than they got. After he attacked Race, Junkyard Dog took the King's robe and left the ring to a standing ovation. JYD was over, man. He was. On to the next match, which was the Dream Team, consisting of Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Greg the Hammer Valentine. They had Luscious Johnny V with them, and Dino Bravo was in their corner as well, against the fabulous Rougeau brothers, Jacques and Raymond. Ray Rougeau started off the match by locking up with Beefcake. The heat went back and forth. Valentine brawled with Jacques, and as Bravo looked on from the outside, Ray Rougeau performed a sleeper hold on Valentine and was followed by Beefcake jumping off the ropes and accidentally hitting the Hammer with the double axe handle. So you could hit a guy in the 80s with a double axe handle and it actually meant something. I mean, you could do flips and dives and kicks, and, you know, if you're anything like the Young Bucks, you got unlimited power. Your stamina just doesn't go away. You know, you are Shao Kahn. You are the M. Bison. I got off subject a little bit. Anyway, double axe handle hit the Hammer accidentally, and the Rougeau brothers gave Valentine a double team. But as they were giving this double team move to Valentine, the referee was arguing with Beefcake. The match ended when Dino Bravo jumped off the top rope and hit Ray Rougeau while he was on top of Valentine, and then he rolled him over and they got the win. The Dream Team argued for most of the match, which led to Valentine, Bravo, and Luscious Johnny V departing together without Brutus Beefcake. This was supposed to be Roddy Piper's last match. It was supposed to be his retirement match. So he had a match with adorable Adrian Adonis, who I thought was ugly as a man or a woman. But when you put a dress and a wig on him, he was still that ugly. It's shocking. To me, anyway. That match, I didn't really care too much for that match. It was just too much going on. I get it was Piper's last one. At the time, it was his last one. Of course, we all know he would go on to wrestle in later years in WCW. Piper's last match, for the time being, it was a hair match. Or I'm not going to say it was a hair match, but it was an easy way to sell tickets because they did cut off his hair. Piper didn't take falls that much back in the day. Like I can rarely ever remember seeing Roddy Piper take a pin. The one time I do remember was at WrestleMania 8 against Bret Hart, but we'll get to that when we get to WrestleMania 8. That's one of my favorites. Roddy Piper put the sleeper on Adonis, and Beefcake cut his hair. They woke him up, and Adonis tried to chase Piper around the ring, and, at some point he couldn't catch him, so he just rolled out of the ring. Jimmy Hart came and put the jacket over his head, and they left in embarrassment, and Piper got the big send-off. Next was a six-man tag team match featuring Danny Davis. This was his debut as a WWF wrestler, and the WWF Tag Team Champions, the Hart Foundation, against the British Bulldogs, Dynamite Kid and David Boy Smith, with Tito Santana and that ugly bulldog Matilda in their corner. As a referee, Davis' bias towards heel wrestlers had led to the Bulldogs losing the tag titles and the Harts, and also to Bulldogs losing the tag titles to the Harts, and also led to Santana losing the WWF Intercontinental Championship to Macho Man Randy Savage. Danny Davis was a heel. Yeah, I think everybody knew that Danny Davis was a heel. But anyway, during the course of the match, the Bulldogs had many near falls, and Neidhart broke up most of them. I remember the Hart Foundation as a heel tag team. I also remember Neidhart doing all the talking. Brett was like the story guy in the ring. Like, talking was never his strong point. But I like the Hart Foundation. They're not on my list of top 10 all greatest tag teams of all time. But I like them. I enjoyed this match. But, it was a lot going on. Once again, it was a lot with the Bulldog. They had to get the puppy, Matilda. They had to get her over. So, she had her spot in the match, too. It ended up as a brawl in the ring. All three members of the Bulldogs and Santana team, they had got some revenge on Davis, and that just triggered the brawl in the ring. Davis did recover, and he hit David Boy with Jimmy Hart's megaphone and pinned him. So, the heel got over, which is okay to do. The heel did get over. It was an entertaining match for what it was. It wasn't the greatest as far as tag team matches at WrestleMania, but we'll have more of an opinion on that in later episodes of this. The next match was the Natural Butch Reed making his pay-per-view debut against Koko B. Ware, which for me is a big deal because when you look like I look and you belong to the demographic I belong to, it's important to see people that look like you on the card. As far as the corporation is concerned, they just, they know that people want to see people that look like them. I get it. But it was a good match. Slick was actually out there. He was Reed's manager, which I like Slick, the doctor of style, man. For the 80s, he had good style. Now it just be seen as tacky or old. But Slick had good style. I liked him. And he would do what managers would do and get their guy over. I love the way old school managers could distract their face and get their guy over without getting over too much and distracted from the whole match. Zelina Vega does that now. She does that well. She makes sure that whoever she's managing is the star and all the focus goes on him. That's what 80s managers would do too. Reed won the match with a roll-up. Of course he won. It was his debut. You're not going to lose. If your debut is WrestleMania in front of 93,000 people and you lose, that kind of just, it's the Sheamus effect, right? You lose your first WrestleMania, you don't really recover from that. He won with a roll-up and a handful of tights after Koko attempted a high cross body. After the contest, Slick got in the ring and attacked Koko, but Tito Santana came out. Tito Santana was at this show. He was like a manager, too. He had to be featured, I suppose. Tito's at a lot of the WrestleManias. He goes under the radar. Tito came out to the ring and stopped Slick and tore some of Slick's clothes off. Of course, Slick being the cowardly heel, he ran. Reed got back into the ring. Slick left him because the cowardly manager. And they would get a double team drop kick on Reed and he would fly out of the ring. The next contest was a title match involving WWF Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Now, Miss Elizabeth was with Savage, and George the Animal Steel was with Steamboat. And I have to say that the commentary on this match was, I mean, Jesse the Body Ventura really was going at Gorilla Monsoon the whole show, but not so much until this match. This match, he kind of went at him because George the Animal Steel was clearly doing heel stuff to help Steamboat, and Gorilla didn't have an answer when Ventura called him out on it. I thought it was funny. I thought the commentary was funny. This match had 19 near pinfalls. I remember watching this. I got this from a guy I went to school with in the 8th grade. He had the tape of WrestleMania's greatest matches, right? I got this tape from him and I watched it, and it was Steamboat Savage. It was one of the matches on there. And it had 19 near pinfalls, which, I mean, a match that's lasting 15 minutes. Nowadays, that don't sound like a lot. But the match probably had, in the words of Steamboat, like 120 spots, and Macho Man could rattle off every single spot. It was choreographed. It was rehearsed. The story goes that Savage flew Steamboat down to his house, and they went over the match. I thought it was one of my favorite matches all the way up until WrestleMania 25, and we'll get to that. If you're a wrestling fan, you probably already know what I'm alluding to, but we'll get to that once we get to WrestleMania 25. At one point, Savage was about to use the ring bell. I mean, it was a back and forth. It was probably Steamboat's best WWE match, period, because none of his other ones really stand out like this one does. Macho Man had injured his neck weeks before and had hurt him and just put him out of action, and they had the pseudo doctor backstage giving the fake reports, kind of like they still do today. So Steamboat wasn't even supposed to make it to WrestleMania 3. But during the course of this match, he attacked the throat, and he was about to do the heel thing. That ring bell started the whole fight. That's how he injured his throat the first time. So Savage went to grab the ring bell, and George the Animal Steel stopped him. Now, George the Animal Steel stopped him once. Savage came and stomped him in the head. Like, he stomped him pretty hard. The camera's right there when he stomps him in the head. He stomps him pretty hard in the top of the head. But Savage kicks him, jumps down, grabs the bell again. This time Steel pushes him off the top rope when he climbs up. He's about to hit Steamboat with it. Pushes him off the top rope this time and takes the bell. Savage would then attempt to give Steamboat a scoop slam, and Steamboat would reverse it into a small package and get the win and become the new WWF Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, marking the first time in WrestleMania history that the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship changed hands. This match is considered by many to be one of the greatest matches in WWE history. I won't say that because it's kind of biased up to this point. I've seen so many. But it definitely ranked up there near the top for a long, long, long time in a lot of people's consciousness. I think the 80s wrestling era, the golden era, is kind of fading out of people's memory. But that was the show stealer. That was the first time a match at WrestleMania stole the show. Of course, the 10th match, on to the next match. The 10th match of the night was between Honky Tonk Man and Jake the Snake Roberts. And Alice Cooper came out with Jake the Snake. Long story short, they got Alice over because Jake went for the DDT, and when he went for the DDT, the Honky Tonk's manager pulled Roberts' leg, and the Honky Tonk Man rolled up Roberts from behind. He held onto the ropes, and he pinned him. After the match, Roberts narrowly missed hitting Honky Tonk with his own guitar, smashing it against the ring post and causing Honky to run down the aisle. That left Hart alone in the ring, and then Alice Cooper got involved. And Alice Cooper getting involved, I mean, of course Jimmy Hart's going to do his thing, right? Like, it's professional. You out here in front of 90,000 people. You got to do your thing. But Jimmy Hart's afraid of snakes. So I guess, that's a rib on him. Like, we'll put him in there with Alice Cooper. And, at the time, Alice Cooper was big in the world of music, as far as calling something music goes. He was big in the world of music, so it made sense. The celebrities always get over at WrestleMania. I don't care who the celebrity is. Alice Cooper would then grab Jimmy Hart in somewhat of a full Nelson, and Jake the Snake would put his python, Damien, on him, and Jimmy Hart would run out of the ring, screaming down the aisle like a little girl. Like Jimmy Hart that's just 3 appearances we've talked about, right? Jimmy Hart was all over WrestleMania 3. Mean Gene Okerlund would then announce that the indoor attendance record was 93,173. That was followed by the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, in action against the Killer Bees. You know, you got to lull the crowd back down right before the main event, because if Hogan and Savage had if Hogan and Andre had followed Savage and Steamboat, I don't think it would be fondly remembered, because Savage and Steamboat clearly went out there with the intent to steal the show. The Iron Sheik locked the camel clutch on Jim Brunzell, who was part of the Killer Bees, him and B. Brian Blair. Slick was out there once again, and he let them sing the Soviet national anthem. And then, of course, Jim Duggan came to the ring, Mr. USA. He got on the microphone and said that Volkov was not going to sing because America is land of the free and home of the brave. They still singing that same old BS today, because it is not. America is a mercenary for hire, but we're not going to get into that on this. This is about wrestling. While the match ensued, Duggan stayed at ringside, and then the Iron Sheik would apply a camel clutch to Brunzell. Duggan, who was chasing off Volkov around the ring and finally into it, stopped and hit Sheik across the back with a 2x4 right in front of the referee, resulting in the Iron Sheik and Volkov winning the bout by disqualification. Hey, a win is a win, right? And now, for the main event, which is not fondly held in my mind as one of the greatest anythings, but you have to have an attraction at every WrestleMania. Every WrestleMania we'll talk about has an attraction that draws eyes from the outside in. That's the whole point of WrestleMania. It was the biggest main event, or billed as the biggest main event in sports entertainment history. And it pitted WWF World Heavyweight Champion Hulk Hogan against Andre the Giant. Bob Uecker was the guest announcer, which Bob Uecker was always funny. The fans booed Andre, and they threw trash all the way. You know, they threw trash the whole time Andre and Bobby the Brain was coming to the ring. They threw trash at him. That's what you want when you're a heel. Well, at least back then, that's what you wanted. Nowadays, guys don't know how to be heels anymore. They do what they're told to do. They booed him. They filled that cart that they was on with trash. Hogan didn't come out on the cart like everybody. Him and Roddy Piper, for some reason, ran to the ring. Everybody else came out on the cart, but Hogan and Roddy Piper couldn't do it. Came out to a huge ovation. 2 minutes into the match, Hogan would attempt to body slam Andre. It looked like 3 to me. That's all I'm going to say. It looked like 3 to me. I thought it was 3. But he body slammed him. Andre fell, or he tried to body slam him. Andre fell on top of him. The referee counted 2. Hogan got out. Andre thought it was 3. Of course you don't. You have to work Andre down. Andre didn't have to give him anything. The match battled back and forth, and Andre gave Hogan an Irish whip to the side of the far side of the ring and attempted a big boot on Hogan. But Hogan ducked it and came off the ropes and gave Andre a clothesline to take him off his feet for the first time in the match. And of course, Hogan has to Hulk up. He was feeling the power from the Hulkamaniacs, blah, 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 blah. I never was a fan of Hogan, but whatever. This isn't about personal. I knew Hogan was going to have an 8-minute match and pose for 9 minutes. I knew that was guaranteed to happen. But he hulked up, and in a moment that has been shown since it happened, he's body slammed 525-pound Andre the Giant, which was the first time it had ever happened. He would then hit the ropes and come off with that ridiculous leg drop to retain and win the championship, even though if you're looking at it, it's kind of like Antonio Brown's Super Bowl catch against the Cardinals. I clearly saw Andre the Giant's shoulders were up, just like Santonio Holmes, not Antonio Brown, Santonio Holmes' Super Bowl winning catch against the Cardinals. Only one of his feet were on the ground, just like only one of Andre's shoulders were on the mat. But nonetheless, Hogan would retain against Andre at WrestleMania III. Their rematch a couple of weeks later for the WWE WrestleMania/F Championship drew 35 million people at home to watch. That's a little side note of what positive came out of WrestleMania 3. Largely, WrestleMania 3 is not one of my favorites. The only reason I like WrestleMania 3 is because Savage and Steamboat. Like I said, I'm a work rate guy. I like guys who are going to go in there and like that. I think that match kind of made the Intercontinental Championship the workhorse title. Savage had it for 15 months before that. So it was kind of already the workhorse title. But that's my favorite standout moment from WrestleMania 3. I would like to thank you for joining me on my coverage of WrestleMania 3. As these episodes go on, these podcasts are going to get longer and longer because WrestleMania is going from a 2-hour event to a 3-hour event to a 4-hour event to a 5-hour event. It has grown in scale and grandeur. But the bottom line is I have to get all the way to 36 so I can do a live episode immediately following WrestleMania 36 from Tampa Bay, Florida. I got that right this time. Any other time I say Orlando. But I have to do my live immediately following. As soon as I get back to the hotel room, I'm going to pop open the laptop, break it, dust off the mic, and I'm going to do a live WrestleMania recap. And that's the goal. Anyway, I'd like to thank you for joining me today. Like, share, subscribe, comment, criticize. It is all welcome as long as you listen. I have been Jeremy Speaks, and this has been Jeremy Speaks on Wrestling. I hope you have a good day. Peace.